Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. I'm Mary Cochran. I serve on the worship committee for Emerson and will be your worship associate this morning. Reverend Ed Prue is away this week, and our guest speaker will be Catherine Vance, who will be speaking to us about embracing the strange. Catherine, say hi to us. Catherine is a member of Bay Area UU Church down near NASA and a candidate for UU ministry. She's attending the Iliff School of Theology in Denver. She recently completed a chaplaincy fellowship at MD Anderson Cancer Center. She also holds an MFA in creative writing from Washington University in St. Louis. Her novel, The Mountains Under Her Feet, was released in March. Thank you for joining us this week, Catherine. Thank you all for being here, whether you're joining us in the pews or online. Hello, online people. First, some announcements. As you probably saw on a previous slide, our altar flowers this week were provided by Charlie and Janice Gibson in honor of their birthday season. So we have real flowers. Remember, Reverend Ed needs your input. Next Sunday is Question Box Sunday. We need questions. It's going to be a really short service if we don't have questions. So please, there should be some links in your e-blasts online, and if you simply can't figure out how to submit questions, just talk to anybody here. We'll help you. Submit all the questions you can. And our turnings service in January, we want to make sure everybody who's had any turning in this past year of any importance gets that information to Reverend Ed so that he can acknowledge during the turning service. We don't want to leave anybody out accidentally. Next Sunday, it says next Sunday in my script, it's wrong. Today, November 19th at 4 p.m., there will be a Zoom brainstorming session to provide input to the long-range planning task force. Give them your ideas about balancing Emerson's income and expenses and how to let our little light shine. After the service today, you're welcome to join us for coffee and conversation in our gathering place. Or if you're online, you'll be able to join the Zoom gathering hosted by Marilyn Rambo. There'll be more about that at the end of the service. And if you'd like to join us for lunch, the lunch bunch will be meeting today at Chipotle on the corner up here of Bering and San Felipe, right? Chimney Rock, one more block over. Everyone is invited. It's just a bunch of people getting together for lunch. And bring the kids. There will be appropriate food. Any visitors who are here today are invited to fill out our yellow card. I know we have yellow cards. Fill one out. You'll receive more information about Emerson and all of our activities, and it will help us get to know you a bit. You can place it in one of the offertory baskets or hand it to somebody after the service. Next week, this one is actually next week. Join us at 12:15 upstairs in the library for light refreshments and an opportunity to get to know Emerson and Unitarian Universalism a little bit better. If you're a visitor, you can get information about us and the church, and if you're just simply curious to know more about UU, even if you've been here for years, come on and join that next week. And now, our formal service will begin with our prelude.
To be hopeless would seem so strange. It dishonors those who go before us. So lift me up to the light of change. There is a hurting in my all across the nation. tears. I am open and I am willing, for to be hopeless would seem so strange. Dishonest those who go before us, so lift me up to the light of change. Yeah, lift me up to the light of change.
As we gather in community, we look within ourselves and to each other for strength, restoration, and inspiration, so that as we journey together, we catch the spark of the eternal Spirit, and from that spark we light our chalice flame. Lighting the chalice symbolizes to all that the spirit of our congregation is strong, and that our will to transform ourselves and the world is also strong. We light the flame with gratitude. We light the flame in memory of all who have gone before, in honor of all who are here now, and with joy for all who are yet to come. As Catherine lights our chalice flame here in the sanctuary, I invite those of you joining us from home to light a candle or chalice of your own. The chalice lighting text this morning and for the month of November come from the words of Pat Humphreys from the song Swimming to the Other Side. Along with Sandy O, Pat is a member of the contemporary folk duo Emma's Revolution. Please read the words with me. When we get there, we'll discover all of the gifts we've been given to share have been with us since life's beginning, and we never noticed they were there. Loving spirits will live together. We're all swimming to the other side. As we work to create beloved community, we welcome all who would join us in building a better world with more love, more justice, and more peace. We welcome all who would join us in growing in mind, heart, and spirit. We welcome all who would join us in tearing down systems of oppression of all kinds. We welcome all who would join their purposes to ours in the loving spirit of right relationship. Whoever you are, wherever you come from, wherever you find yourself on your life's journey, whichever your pronouns, whether you walked in or rolled in or dialed in, whomever you love, you are welcome here. It is important that we acknowledge that our history is a shared and harmful one. Our congregation's buildings are situated on the home of the Karankawa and Atakapa peoples for at least 2,000 years before the first known European settlers arrived and very nearly brought about their end. May we recognize, uplift, and support Indigenous voices and communities in our work as a congregation. Each week we hear words of wisdom and value from one of 6 sources of Unitarian Universalism. Catherine will now lead us in a responsive reading. It will be on the screen, or you can find it in your gray hymnal, number 645, The Song of the Open Road by Walt Whitman.
Okay. Afoot and light-hearted, I take to the open road. Healthy, free, the world before me. I inhale great draughts of space. The east and the west are mine, and the north and the south are mine.
All seems beautiful to me. I could repeat over to men and women, you have done such good to me. I would do the same to you.
Whoever you are, come travel with me. However sweet these laid-up stores, however convenient this dwelling, we cannot remain here.
However sheltered this fort, and however calm these waters, we must not anchor here.
Together, the inducements shall be greater. We will sail pathless and wild seas.
We will go where winds blow, waves dash, and the Yankee clipper speeds up under full sail.
Forward, after the great companions, and to belong to them. They too are on the road.
Onward to that which is endless, as it was beginningless, to undergo much, tramps of days, rests
to see nothing anywhere but what you may reach it and pass it, to look up or down no road, but it stretches and waits for you, to know the universe itself as a road, as many roads, as roads for traveling souls. All right, if you would join me now, please, in singing our first hymn. You can stand or sit as you're comfortable, but please help raise our voices. It is number 95, There Is More Love Somewhere.
As you see, the story today is called Marmalade, a story about reconciliation, written by Orlando R. Brugnola. I'm hoping I say it right, slightly abridged. Whitman Jones had just turned 9. That was good. But he was going to a new school in a new town, and that was bad. In his old school, he knew everyone. They'd been in classes with him for years. In this new school, he didn't know one single person. Not only that, but the first day did not go well at all. "Whitman Jones," the teacher called out. "Whitman? Why, that's an unusual name." "You can call me Whit," Whitman said, hoping to be helpful. "All right, Whit, I'll do that, thank you," said the teacher. His classmates made some funny noises. There didn't seem to be any way to explain to them that he was named for his grandfather. At recess, a very tall boy in Whitman's class came over to him. His name was Eric Smith. Eric said, "Whit? No, wait, what?" And he laughed. And then he said, "Whit, what, whatever." He laughed again, and Whitman knew it wasn't a nice laugh. He looked down. "Hey, whatever, where'd you get those clothes?" He plucked at Whitman's shirt. That was kind of scary. "Bet you got them at Walmart." "Sure, whatever wears whatever from Walmart." He laughed again. Whitman didn't know what to do, but luckily the bell rang and recess was over. After that, he tried to avoid Eric, didn't look at him, didn't raise his hand if Eric had already raised his. He spent the beginning of lunch in the boys' bathroom so Eric wouldn't still be in line or looking for a seat. Once in a while, Eric would shout, "Whatever!"
across the school yard at recess. Whitman tried to concentrate on his lessons. He practiced his spelling and some arithmetic in his head on the days when he walked home. One day, he saw a piece of paper on a telephone pole. It had a picture of something. When he got close, he saw it was a picture of a cat. "Lost cat," said the paper. It said the cat was orange and was called Marmalade. It gave an address. The paper made Whitman sad. He wouldn't want to lose a cat or a dog if he had one. He thought some kid must be pretty unhappy. The next day on his way home, Whitman heard something. It was a very small sound, and he had trouble figuring out what direction it came from. Then he saw a cardboard box on the street next to the curb. The sound was coming from there. He went over and looked in the side of the box, and shivering from the cold was a small cat. "Meow," it said hopefully. "Meow yourself," said Whitman. "You must be freezing in there. Come on, let me pick you up." The cat was shivering, but not so much that he couldn't dig his claws into Whitman's jacket. Okay, it's going to be okay. Let's get you home." This cat was orange, and it was obviously lost, so it must be the cat that he had read about. He didn't remember the address, though, so he had to go back and find the telephone pole with the paper. "Okay, see? I'll just take you home, and you'll be fine." "Meow," said the cat and dug his claws in a bit more. "Ouch," said Whitman. "Take it easy." The address wasn't far, but of course Whitman didn't know if anyone would be home. He rang the bell, and he waited. He rang again, and waited, and then he thought he could see someone coming. When the door opened, he had a real scare. It was Eric, the guy from school who had made fun of him. Eric said, "Whatever, get off of my porch." And then he saw the cat. "That's Marmalade," he almost shouted. Whitman held out the cat at arm's length. "Here, he's yours." Eric grabbed the cat and tucked him under his chin and for a moment closed his eyes and rocked the cat in his arms. Then as Whitman turned, ready to run in case Eric came after him, Eric said, "Wait a minute, let me tell my mom." He went inside, but left the door half open. "Mom," he yelled, "Marmalade is back. Somebody from school brought him. Can we have some cookies?" He hardly waited for an answer. "Come on," he said to Whitman, "it's cold out there." And still carrying the cat, he led Whitman to the kitchen. The cookies were still cooling from the oven, and they smelled really good. "Want some milk?" he asked Whitman. Whitman nodded. "Sit," said Eric. He got a paper towel for each of them and brought the cookies over. Then he poured a glass of milk for each of them and a bowl for Marmalade. When they'd eaten at least 2 cookies each, Eric said, "Thanks for bringing Marmalade back. She's never been outside. I guess she got lost." And then he said, "I was sick all last year. My grandma got Marmalade when she was a kitten. Marmalade used to lie on my chest and purr. It helped a lot." Whit said, "Wow, that must have been some year. Are you okay now?" "Yeah, I'm pretty okay now," said Eric. Then Eric looked down and said, "I'm sorry I made fun of your name." Whitman could see that Eric really was sorry, and so he said, "Whatever." And Eric looked at him as if he had gotten 2 gifts in one, his cat back and a new friend too, and they laughed at Whitman's joke. Whitman said, "It's so weird that we both have unusual first names, Whitman and Eric, but our last names are so common, Jones and Smith." "You're right," said Eric, and then they ate some more cookies and had more milk. And Marmalade had more milk too, but no cookies.
Emerson collects an offering each week like many other communities of faith, but our offering is not for our church, which is supported by the annual pledges of our members. We collect our Sunday offering to give to others because we know that giving is both a transformative spiritual act and an important way to live out our values. 75% of today's offering will go to our November Share the Plate recipient, the Women's Home. The mission of the Women's Home is to build communities that strengthen women and support families as they reclaim their stability. In 2022, the Women's Home was selected as one of 10 winners across the country for the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration's first ever Behavioral Health Recovery Innovation Challenge Award. The remaining 25% of our offering will go, as always, to Interfaith Ministries Meals on Wheels, which provides thousands of meals every day to Houston's homebound seniors. You can go to our webpage for online giving, put cash or a check in our offering baskets located 2 in the front, 1 in the back, or mail a check to the church. During the offering music, children who want to attend RE may follow Jill to their classrooms.
We shall be known by the company we keep, by the ones who circle round to tend these fires. We shall be known by the ones who sow and reap the seeds of change alive from deep within the earth. It is time now. It is time now that we thrive. It is time we lead ourselves into the well. It is time now, and what a time to be alive. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love.
And now we enter into our quiet time, a time of meditation, a time of prayer, a time of careful contemplation. Catherine will now lead us in a guided meditation.
Well, since the topic for today is strangeness, all those feelings of distance and separation from the news cycle of the day, all that confusion and alienation that keeps us wondering about what is really going on with other people's thinking or with our own. So let's consider that as we settle ourselves comfortably. Let your head and neck relax. Let your jaw go slack. Ground yourself comfortably in your seat with your feet on the floor. Feel your hips against the seat. Feel your feet against the earth. And let's just breathe at the sound of the singing bowl. We're going to breathe in for 3 and out for 5, and then reflect. In for 3 and out for 5, and reflect. So let's begin. So let's practice accepting that everything is connected. You know it's true. So let's consider behaving as if there were no walls anywhere, that people in the store, in the street, at work are lovable and accessible. The things that cause us pain are often our greatest teachers, and sometimes we cause the pain by our own thinking. So let things be more neutral. Be like the universe. Don't give things a weight. Let's breathe and then reflect again. Now, practice treating yourself as if you were whole and complete. See yourself with kindness in all of your imperfection, your physical, intellectual, and spiritual imperfection, the mistakes you have made. See yourself in the weirdness of your childhood and your upbringing, and just think about your heart, whatever is breaking it or has broken it, And let that strangeness in yourself be neutral. And don't give it a weight, because for the universe, it has none. And now let's breathe again one more time. Let's practice knowing that the universe itself is strange and unfathomable in the mysteries of time and space. Practice not being afraid, only curious. Life is interesting, so don't push anything away. Let it be neutral. Don't give it a weight. Just let it be. Practice believing that everything is unfolding. Everything is emerging as it should. Amen. Well, the reading that I have today is from Houston's own Brene Brown. It's from her book, Braving the Wilderness. And she says, "A wild heart is awake to the pain of the world, but it doesn't diminish its own pain. A wild heart can beat with gratitude and lean into pure joy without denying the struggle in the world. We hold that tension with the spirit of the wilderness. It's not always easy or comfortable. Sometimes we struggle with the weight of the pull, but what makes it possible is a front made of love and a back made of courage. True belonging is built on a foundation of tension and paradoxes. True belonging is the spiritual practice of believing and belonging to yourself so deeply that you can share your most authentic self with the world. Find sacredness in both belonging, in both being a part of something and standing alone in the wilderness. True belonging doesn't require you to change who you are. It requires you to be who you are. So, stop walking through the world looking for confirmation that you don't belong. You will always find it because you've made that your mission. Stop scouring people's faces for evidence that you're not enough. You will always find that because you've made it your goal. True belonging and self-worth are not goods. We don't negotiate their value with the world. The truth about who we are lives in our hearts. Our call to courage is to protect our wild heart against constant evaluation, especially our own, because no one belongs here more than you. From Brene Brown. Well, I'm so pleased to be here today. This is my first time at Emerson, and I want to thank Reverend Ed and thank you for having me. So, since the title of my sermon is Embracing the Strange, I thought I'd start by telling you a little story about something that happened in my own family. My mother is a Presbyterian. She's 89 years old, and she tells everybody the story of how two angels rescued her from a flood. And when she tells this story, she is not being metaphorical. She literally believes that two men disguised as angels took her out of her flooded car and set her on higher ground to save her life. And then they just disappeared. Well, she had been to see my father, who was in the hospital, and she had stayed all day. And she hadn't bothered to listen to the weather report, but the rain had intensified, and it was quite a downpour as she drove home. And it came so hard and so fast that the street filled up the way that it can do here in Houston. And when she tried to drive through a sheet of water near the medical center, her car stalled. So she called my brother-in-law on her cell phone, and he immediately went to get her. But he only got so far before the water stopped him as well. And so my mother climbed up in the seat of her car because the water had filled the floor. And she had already called 911, but they said, well, it's going to take us 30 minutes to get there. So she started honking her horn and praying. And she said, well, the next thing I know, there are these two guys standing at my window. And they said, open the door, come on, we've got you. And one of them just picked her up, and the other one reached over and got her purse, and they carried her up an embankment and set her down beside a truck that had pulled over. And they asked the driver if my mother could sit inside. And she says, so I climbed in, and then I turned back to look and thank them, but they were gone. And I looked up and down the road, and I couldn't see them anywhere. And they had disappeared in the blink of an eye, and no one can tell me that they weren't angels. Well, I relate this not to start diverging into magical thinking right off the bat, but just as a frame of reference for how I'm feeling right now at this point in history. Because here it is, almost Thanksgiving, and I should feel calm. I should feel grateful, but I realize that I, perhaps like many of you, are listening to the news, and I'm feeling afraid. I'm feeling maybe sad and angry at times. I've just been shocked at the events that are unfolding around us, and I'm waiting for some kind of rescue to arrive. And so who is coming these days to take us out of our flooded cars and set us on higher ground? Because my horn is honking. Hello, anybody out there, please? I'm drowning. We're drowning over here. And it's a little bit of a panic situation at times, we feel. And I am just feeling so very estranged and so very inadequate to do anything to help other people, or even sometimes to help myself. Because everywhere we go, we see groups of people who really ought to be loving and caring for each other and finding things in common, but they don't. It may be something as mundane as entertaining your brother-in-law at a family gathering this week. You may have heard that Susan Tedeschi song, "The Christians and the Pagans Sit Together at the Table." Well, that's the situation that many of us are facing in the coming week. Maybe what's getting you right now is the fact that an almost 50-year-old ruling for women's reproductive rights was overturned. Or maybe it's that so much violence has been done at schools and churches and social events, and yet no substantive gun laws have yet been passed. And those are just a couple of the examples of how it has gotten stranger and more scary. Well, as I was writing the sermon, I started thinking about what used to be a symbol of solidarity and hope for me. And I thought about the Statue of Liberty, which was my favorite icon, my favorite American icon when I was a little girl. And as I learned more, the symbolism of the Statue of Liberty really struck me, because there she was wearing this crown, the light was streaming out from her head, sunlight, American enlightenment and expansiveness, and around her feet are those broken shackles that had been placed there by the French designer who had been so inspired and moved by our abolition of slavery. And then there's that signature poem by Emma Lazarus, "Give us your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to be free." And we used to believe in that extension of welcome, in that understanding that we were disparate groups of people coming together to build something that we both valued and loved. Well, let's be clear, we have always been an imperfect nation. Nothing shows that more than the fact that we have to do a land acknowledgement at the beginning of our services. But for the most part, we have tried to believe that amazing things were possible. We did believe in our better angels. We used to be certain that we could come together at this or any other time of year like strangers in an airport in some Hallmark Hollywood movie, maybe. Oh, I see you. We have so much in common. But Now those ideals seem further away than I have ever known them to be. And you may have, as I do, friends who are actively rejoicing about the fact that women's reproductive rights have been jerked away. You may, as I do, feel stressed hearing different sides being taken in the current conflict between Israel and Gaza. I also hear a feeling of sadness and anxiety about Trans Day of Remembrance, which happens tomorrow in honor of those whose lives were also lost in acts of violence. Meanwhile, if I'm sitting at a stoplight behind a truck that's bearing one of those big AK-47 come and take me stickers, I say to myself, it is okay to be a little bit afraid. So how do we deal? How do you deal with that growing disappointment, with the belief that things are not living up to the expectations that we had? How do we keep ourselves from this gut-wrenching concern that America is headed in the wrong direction? Well, when I started looking to spiritual thought for help, the thing that kept coming up over and over again for me was this: I had to stop being sad and angry, hoping that other people would change, because that was really out of my control. This whole thing, whatever this is, whatever issue you're referring to, will maybe take some time to sort out. And in the meantime, there was a real danger that my fear and my sadness and my anger was going to make me a stranger to myself. And I said, I can say no to that. I can't talk someone into having a different point of view, but I can be in charge of myself. I can see those negative emotions, and I get to determine the extent to which I'm going to allow them to take up space and make me feel uncomfortable in my own skin. So I have the ability to say, I'm not going to let any of this turn me into a person that I don't recognize. Buddhist writer and nun Pema Chodron writes that once upon a time, someone gave me a box of darkness, but I picked up my chin and I said, thank you, because darkness too is an opportunity. So I'm going to stay in a place of calm. I'm going to stay in a place of listening, because it's up to me to remember that whatever judgments I proclaim or whatever walls I put up, those are of my own making. I have worked hard to love myself and all of my strangeness in my physical appearance, my nerdiness, my intellectual fascinations. I just want to continue living as if I was open to love anyone, as if I had just met them and was curious and eager to know who they were. The scriptures of the world and the wisdom of the human heart remind us that the essential truth of the universe is that we really are whole and connected one to another. We're connected to all the unwanted and wanted parts of ourselves and to our history. We're connected to the unwanted parts of other people, even if we don't admire them, even if we can barely tolerate their viewpoints at times. And we're connected to life force energy in all of its incarnations, because separation is a concept that we've invented. So we can see how easy it is with our Unitarian Universalist principles to love the strange if it's a homeless man who suffers from poverty and mental illness, how easy it is to sympathize with the struggles of people of color, with the wounded, with orphan children, with others like ourselves who have alternate theologies cobbled out of this and that. We can deal with that kind of strangeness, but you know where your triggers are, and you know who that person is. That type of thinker, the one with that hat, that horrible hat, the one with that flag, the zealot with the hard eyes, the religious conservative whose words and epithets make your blood run cold, that make you want to walk on the other side of the street, or unfriend them from your Facebook, or even black out their name from your own family tree. So we look around, wondering who we can trust, who's on our side, who's available to help fix things. And really, we reinforce the problem by noticing all these differences, these opposing ideologies and enemies we have to watch out for. So this is what it's come to, but I'm not going to fall for it. I'm not going to fall for it. My greatest challenge is not continuing on with the fight for rights and issues I believe in, because I intend to stay on my path of working with social justice groups to bend the arc of the universe back in the direction that you know it needs to go. I'll do that. But am I okay to just keep looking at myself in the mirror and feeling at peace? And so one way to do that is to stop running these negative narratives in my head and instead find a way to intentionally locate points of joy. Well, in her book, Welcoming the Unwelcome, Pema Chodron, I just mentioned her, she talks about the practice of intentionally picking out people in a crowd and reminding herself, that person is no different from me. We are just the same, is the phrase she uses. She says, look, we both love chocolate chip ice cream. Look, we both are here walking beside the ocean, appreciating the breeze and the view. So I have tried it, sort of as a countermeasure. Whenever I find myself getting a story going in my head telling me that this neighbor with his political preference sign is unsafe, or that I should be careful what I say to my coworker that I know has deeply fundamentalist perspectives. I remember how I saw my MAGA neighbor helping her grandson ride his bicycle. And so I said, that's exactly what I would do. We're the same. I would help my grandchild ride his bicycle. I thought, she gets together with the women of her church community. They have the best potlucks. Well, my church has great community dinners as well. We have that in common. So I've tried this in some really unlikely places just as a test. And so the other day I was driving, and one of those trucks with the AK-47 sticker was behind me. And so in my head I said, we are just the same. And I just waited to see what was going to surface. And so what came to me was, we're both breathing this air. We're both traveling this road. And oh my gosh, we're both going to HEB. Pull in right beside me. And we just can smile at each other and know the truth, the mystery and the truth of knowing that we really are connected if I decide not to give it a negative judgment. I did, as the meditation we performed recommends, I just tried to let it be neutral, to kind of take away my fears, take away my judgments, and just understand the mystery of being the same as those who are so different. Sometimes it helps to remember how strange I look to others from the scrap of earth on which they stand. Ultra-conservatives, for example, are just as leery of me as I am of them. And of course, who would be afraid of me? Just take the time to get to know me. And that reversal can be so effective because love really is the best avenger. Just believing in the worth and dignity of every person without reservation. It requires nearly nothing to be kind, only a suspension of judgment as to who you're dealing with. And you can take this even one step further and determine not to be a stranger to yourself. Well, when I served as a chaplain at MD Anderson, I was a stranger to most of my patients, but it gets really personal really fast. And there's often no chance to stay diplomatic or figure out whether my ideology meshes with theirs. I can't evaluate things, but I don't have time to figure out whether there's a wall between my cultural and spiritual understandings and theirs. So on one of my first code blues, which you may know is when they call an emergency interdisciplinary team in situations of life or death. So on one of my first codes, I was allowed into the inner sanctum of a room where the patient lay unconscious on the bed while the medical team worked to resuscitate him. and his daughter huddled over on the window seat, and she was crying with her hand to her mouth. And so I just made a beeline for her, and I sat down next to her, and I said, "I'm here for you." And so she grabbed onto me and started relying on me for spiritual support as if she had known me all her life. Well, Robert Dykstra, in his essay, The Intimate Stranger, speaks of chaplains as having an escalating sense of utter helplessness and inadequacy in such moments. And it's very much like what we feel whenever yet another devastating thing happens in the world, takes over the 6 o'clock news. What the hell has just happened, and how am I supposed to respond to this? Well, in that hospital, I felt inadequate only in that I knew I could do nothing medically to help her father. Otherwise, this was exactly the kind of scenario that I felt honored to be called to. I was here to provide strength and comfort to her in her darkest hour. I didn't have a sense of anxiety, and I didn't have a sense of judgment about her life circumstances, her background. I didn't know whether she believed in gun control or reproductive rights or DACA or Jesus or Buddha. I didn't have any agenda at all other than to be with her as long as it was needed and to walk alongside her until the crisis had passed. So Dykstra in his article mentions examples, biblical examples of the role of strangers, and you may have heard this: don't forget to show hospitality to strangers, for thereby some have entertained angels unawares, which is from the Christian Bible, New Testament, Hebrews 13. So that's an invitation to show love and kindness to people regardless of their station and without any assessment of whether or not they actually deserve it. He points out that when we minister to strangers, we are recalling how we ourselves are strange to others as well. So I ministered to her, and I listened to her cry as her dad took his last breath, and I prayed with her in my arms for his soul and for her strength. And at that moment, I might as well have been some angel suddenly there for her, like the pair that my mom says rescued her. But I was really more so ministering to myself, to the strangeness in me that felt so uncertain about my own capability, about my own thinking, and about whether or not I had limits to my compassion. I ministered to the piece of me that needed to be told that everything that was going to be okay, and that neither of us was in this alone. So being an intimate stranger is not a one-way ministry. I actually felt so incredibly joyful to be there with her, and her welcoming of me was a validation that the differences between people is nothing when compared with the willingness to be present for each other and just let love dissolve the differences. So after the code blue left the room and she began to process what had just happened, we had a chance to meet each other more formally, and we discovered that we had roots in the same remote mountainous portion of Western North Carolina. What are the chances of that? And so we were really and truly not so much strangers after all, and our realization of that synchronicity just made everything seem so much more mysterious and miraculous. I had been just the right person to come to her at just the right time, and we both agreed it really was strange and wonderful. Well, what we're facing right now in our country and in the world is a long game. And we can't afford to divide ourselves any further, and it does look like there are no angels coming in to our rescue. So I took a look at the Statue of Liberty again recently and asked myself, what is that face that she's making? It's hard to see, but it's really supposed to be welcoming. And I had to remember that my own face, and my own faith, too, for sure, was in there, because the collective and the individual are combined. So I just want to say that whoever you are, strange as we are to each other, I'm reaching out my hand to you, and I hope that you take it. Come sit here at the table with me and let's break bread together. Let's offer each other the light in the name of the worth and dignity of every person, in the name of the democratic processes and principles in which we believe, and in the name of the interconnectedness of all that is, we are all the same. Amen.
Thank you, Catherine. Would you all now please join us in singing our closing hymn, number 348 in your gray hymnal, Guide My Feet. We're so grateful for your presence this morning. For those of you who have joined us on YouTube, after the postlude will be ending the live streaming service. Please feel free to join us on Zoom for our online social hour. The link to the Zoom room is in your weekly email and will appear on the slide at the end of the service. And you can also scroll down a bit on your YouTube and look for the link on the left. Thank you to all online attendees. We look forward to hosting you again soon. I now invite Catherine to come and extinguish our chalice for us. May we, in the course of our week to come, be able to feel the liberating freedom of the religious path we share. May our gods challenge us to live up to our own expectations of ourselves, wherever and whatever they are. And may the world around us light up so that we might see our way back to clarity and wholeness. Amen. And now, our postlude.